Hey guys, it's Sam and Amson. Welcome to this MYXclusive interview. Happy Wednesday afternoon to everyone who is joining us live. I'm so excited to be here because in just a bit I will be having a very special guest who will be joining me, and he's an amazing artist producer joining us today. And since it is his first time joining us here on MYXclusive, I'm excited to get to know more about him and his music. So everyone, please welcome him for the first time ever on MYXclusive. We have Houg. Woo!
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hello. We're so excited to have you over here, Houg. So you're calling us all the way from Singapore. How are you? How's things over there?
Um, yeah, things are intense,
Same.
but
Felt
yeah,
that.
to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, it's I'm just grateful. Everything
Mm-hmm.
it's okay so far for myself and for
Mm-hmm.
my loved ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's good to hear. I felt that, it's pretty intense also over here. It's pretty intense too. I mean, everything in the last like almost 2 years, right? Since the
Yeah,
pandemic started, we've all kind of had to do stuff on our own at home, kind of find ways to keep ourselves sane and safe too throughout this time. So for you, what was like the thing or maybe things that you maybe learned or something new that you tried during this time, or maybe like things that you explored also during this time?
I think for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time getting more into photography
Oh
since the
wow.
pandemic started. Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I used to do it a bit more casually.
mm-hmm,
Didn't really think too much about it, but then,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
uh, especially now, it's really hard to do a lot of music stuff. So
Yeah.
I tried to find a bit more work in photography to sort of supplement my music, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's been really enlightening, and uh, yeah, it's so much. There's so much growth I've gained from that like I'm sort of using the skills I've learned from that to sort of
Mm-hmm.
influence how my visual vibe is like for my
Oh
music.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially nowadays too, right? With music, the visual aspect is also a really big part of it. We've seen it more and more these days. But that's so cool, like photography. I feel like that's also one of my passive interests. Kind of like everyone has an
Yeah.
interest for photography. It's like I want to take photos and stuff, but I love that you kind of, took it a step forward. So like, with photography, like people like to shoot certain things and stuff. But for you, like what are you drawn to in terms of expressing yourself through photography?
Um, for me, I like just I like working with the film medium
Oh
because
wow, yeah.
yeah, I think its unpredictability brings a lot
Exactly.
of character. Yeah, so
Mhm, yeah.
doing portraiture on it has been really
Mhm,
nice.
mhm,
So much so that like I sort of have this little side thing where
mhm.
I do a ongoing series of days in the life of the people I sort of know, and I
Oh,
just
wow.
spend. Yeah, I have this camera that just shoots like 12 frames, and it's perfect enough to tell a story of someone's life in a day. So that's a
That's so
series that
cool.
I've been yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's pretty much what I've been
Mhm,
doing on the side of photography that I love. Yeah,
mhm. Oh my god, I would love to be your friend, just capture my life through film. No, but I love the film medium too, just because like what you said, it's very unpredictable. It's kind of like there's like a mystery. You don't know if it's gonna turn out
yeah.
great, but seeing it like, after is just one of the best feelings ever. So that's so cool that you're able to express yourself too through photography. But you said, music has been a little bit hard for you
Yeah.
finding, that's why photography was like another outlet for you. So what's up with the music? Like, how has it been? Especially nowadays, I understand like it's very difficult to do anything like at all.
Yeah.
So, what was it like, kind of going through all of the motions and with the music aspect of things?
In terms of writing, it's
Mm-hmm.
been pretty positive because there's
Oh,
a lot more
perfect.
time to
Mm-hmm.
just like get stuff done. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of time by myself, and that
Mm-hmm.
gives me a lot of moment to just have some sort of introspection and
Mm-hmm.
to cultivate that into some sort of creative medium, be it like either
Mm-hmm.
photography or music. But what's been difficult, I'd say, is more on having that more or less that organic connection with people when you
Mm-hmm.
perform. and that has
Mm-hmm.
been quite difficult since the pandemic because
Mm-hmm.
obviously for safety reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
I know every country has their own way of reintroducing the live sector
Mm-hmm.
for music,
Yeah.
and it's a bit slow here, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess better safe than sorry. And
Mm-hmm.
all I can say about that is for now, because that's out of the picture for the foreseeable future. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
really excited for that to eventually come back.
No, yeah, definitely. We're all really excited for that. I mean, it's one thing listening to music at home, obviously, still one of the best things ever, but experiencing it live and as both the audience and as an artist is something that we all miss, definitely. And we totally relate because also in the Philippines, kind of been difficult for like live music. And it's so weird, like seeing other parts of the world, like in the States, having full blown like concerts, right? Like
Yeah,
festivals. It's so foreign to us. We're like, what?
yeah,
Like I can't
yeah,
imagine like that whole feeling, right? But hopefully
yeah.
one day we'll get to be squished in a crowd again with sweat everywhere. One of the best feelings. But right now, right? So unimaginable if you think
That's so
about
true.
it,
Yeah,
right? It's just so weird. But hopefully one day we'll get to
yeah,
experience it again for sure.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing when that happens. But in terms of music, like you said, you had a lot of introspection, right? A lot of, I mean, all of us kind of had to kind of like tap into that deeper part of ourselves. Kind of
Yeah.
like we're forced to really get to know more about ourselves throughout this time. So for you, like, what was something that surprised you, maybe about yourself or the kind of stuff that you like to do, your music that maybe you learned throughout this whole introspection.
I think for myself, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's quite interesting because right before the pandemic, I actually spent a whole year in Australia trying to do my
Oh wow.
music over there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I sort of like over the last couple of years prior to the pandemic, I saved up my
Mm-hmm.
own cash, tried to
Mm-hmm.
sort of find my footing in some sort of like a foreign community to sort of
Yeah.
see where the music works, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great here, but like
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's this constant need to find your niche, and
Mm-hmm.
I sort of settled on Melbourne
Oh yeah.
for a bit, and I spent a whole year over there. It's a roller coaster of a time during my time over there, and that was most of
Mm-hmm.
2019. So
Mm-hmm.
when I came back eventually, and it happened to be right smack when the pandemic began, and
Mm-hmm.
once we went full into lockdown, um, it was quite interesting because it was a perfect moment for me to sort of, you know, s rationalize that whole year that had passed. And a lot of, because if initially when I came back and my loved ones were saying like, "Oh, how was it? How would you describe your time there? Did it work out?" Very, very simplistic questions, but
Yeah, yeah.
the reality is it's a lot more complicated than that, and how you
Mm-hmm.
rationalize it was, at least for me, it was very difficult to put into words. So naturally, when I
Mm-hmm.
had that time to think a bit more about what that was for me, I decided that I think maybe music is a better way to sort of, elaborate on that whole experience. And,
Mm-hmm.
eventually that turned into a full album.
Yeah.
And I figured that there was a pattern that was growing between the
Mm-hmm.
songs when I sort of had that reflection, and it all centered itself around time and various aspects of time. So, that was how I managed to use that form of introspection during the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the output of that is this upcoming album.
Ooh, that's amazing. I mean, I have a lot of introspection, but I don't have an album coming out, so that's really cool that you're able to, express all of that thought and like all of that introspection into music. Because like not everyone can do that, obviously. Like I can't do that kind of thing, but we love that you're able to share it with everyone. Because like everything that you felt, a lot of people also kind of felt too. Like throughout the
Yeah.
world, we all kind of had all of our questions too about our life and the things that we want to do and the way that you're able to express it through music makes us so excited because it's something that a lot of people for sure can relate to. But before we get to talking more about the album, I would love to know about how you actually started with music in the first place. I was like reading up on you. I saw that you listened to a lot of Chromeo. I love Chromeo. Literally, Grew up listening to Chromeo. Amazing. So what was it like for you, like starting off with music? What was like the something that like sparked your interest in music?
Um, I grew up in a household that
Hmm, hmm,
had a lot of people. I have
hmm.
okay, no, including myself, five siblings, and
Yeah. Wow.
my oldest sister, when I was really young, my oldest sister was old enough to have her own like little like hi-fi system in her bedroom with a little,
Cute.
Walkman when she's on the
Yeah.
move. And I basically, whenever she was out, because she worked weird hours, whenever she was
Hmm,
out, I sort of like put in a cassette and
hmm,
see what different sounds sound like. And one
hmm.
band I really fell in love with at the time was Jamiroquai, because I
Yes.
think it's really around that time where they were really popping. So
Hmm,
uh, and from there I also came across my father's cassettes, which had a lot of Motown stuff. And from there, I think it's just like a constant like interest in different kind of music that I was sort
hmm.
of, bear in mind, like growing up, it's like when the internet was starting to take shape. And
Oh yeah.
we had Napster, I guess, but like
Yeah.
but I didn't
I
really have
feel
a
you.
I didn't really have like a functional internet at home, so that was out of the
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
So
Hmm,
I still had to find music through more traditional means, and that
hmm.
just grew and grew. And when eventually like Guitar Hero came out, I
Yes.
figured,
Best show, best game. Oh my god,
yes.
amazing,
So I bought the whole
amazing.
I bought the whole band kit, and
Yeah, with the drums. Come
with the
on.
drums, yes.
Yeah.
And I just figured like, oh, I'm pretty good at playing with these buttons. So I figured like, okay, let me try and replace this 5 button guitar for a real one. And yeah, that's when I was hit with the reality that it's not the same.
It's
And
so hard. Yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty much how I sort of flowed from like my basic interest into music into getting involved into music.
Hmm,
And
hmm,
from there, I think it was just more or less like finding this sort of persistence to just keep on figuring it out. And
hmm.
eventually, like, I think the sounds I was making sounded decent enough to be considered music. And yeah, I guess that's where I am now.
Yeah, I love it. Quite the journey. Obviously, like I totally relate to everything you just said. Having different, like I also grew up in the time where the internet was still kind of like taking shape, like
Yeah.
dial up internet and all
Oh,
of
yes.
that, having to actually download music before, because now it's like streaming, right? So
Yeah.
it was really a different back then. I love that you brought up Guitar Hero, because a lot of like I feel like we're in the same kind of age group. So I
Yeah.
also grew up playing Guitar Hero, thought I was amazing, thought I was a rock star, just like every other kid out there. And I love that you also thought the same thing and kind of brought it to real life, like learning guitar and
Yeah.
realizing that it wasn't the same thing. It's amazing. But still, and then turning all of that into music, obviously, it's really quite the journey. Shout out to Guitar Hero,
Yes.
making
Shout
rock
out to
stars
Guitar
everywhere.
Hero.
Yeah, making us feel like the true rock stars that we are inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you're able to continue on with the music and like you said, create stuff that can be recognized as music. But obviously having your own sound is different from all of the influences that you had growing up, like the music your sister and your dad listened to Guitar Hero, because a lot of the songs in Guitar Hero is different from also the stuff that you make as like your
Yeah.
artist self. So how do you think you found your kind of footing in the music that you wanted to create as an artist?
Um, when once I picked up the guitar, I sort of like
Mhm.
asked a couple of classmates whether they wanted to play in a
Mm.
band. And
Cute.
yeah, and we were doing covers at the time.
Yeah.
But when we went to one of the rehearsal spaces that was around at the
Mhm.
time, I remember
Mhm.
like just hearing someone else. Um, they were playing with this sort of like weird sound that was coming out
Mhm.
from one of the rehearsal spaces.
Mhm.
And I asked one of my bandmates, "What's that?" And he said, "Like, I think that's a synthesizer." And it was that
Oh.
moment, literally, that I was like, "Okay, I think this could be the instrument for
Yeah.
me," because
Mhm.
I think it just felt like I mean, no offense to any guitar player, but like for me personally, I felt like the sounds that were coming out from that particular instrument felt a lot more dynamic to me, at least. And
Yeah.
it's from there that I sort of like did my own research and found bands that
Mhm.
made a name for themselves, leaning more
Mhm.
towards that instrument. And
Mhm.
eventually, when the band did like break up, I wouldn't say break up, they got married, and
Yeah.
I just figured like, look, these instruments are able to sort of carry me through without a band per se. So that's how it sort of
Mm.
transcended into this more electronic-ish
Yeah.
sound, I would say.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm. Oh, so you started off with a band. I love say
yeah.
Guitar Hero. You know, it just it just moved from there. And also like yeah, with a synthesizer, I totally get what you mean. It is very dynamic, you know, being able to do a lot of things with that and kind of growing that instrument into the kind of sounds that you make, I thought was
Yeah.
really, really cool. And like you said, like with the music that you create, like time is a big part of, you know, like the theme, like time. So like how do you think that like happened? Like time as a big thing that became part of your music.
Um, well, okay. So whenever I sort of, when I was writing music as Houg, I wanted it to
Mm-hmm.
sort of be like this ongoing story filled with various
Mm-hmm.
chapters, and
Mm-hmm.
every album, I wouldn't say album, but every release up till this point sort of adhered to a certain topic within the story, right? And
Mm-hmm.
every time when I'm doing something more than just a single, but like writing a sort of compilation of songs, be it
Mm-hmm.
an EP or a couple of demos in the past, I wanted to sort of, at the very least, have this sort of thematic constant.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it as the chapters, right? So like I've
Mm-hmm.
had a chapter that dealt with um, insecurity, which would
Mm-hmm.
probably be what my EP that came out last year is about.
Mm-hmm.
And when, like I said, when I was writing for this particular album, I just realized that within all the songs, time was it kept reappearing. So
Mm-hmm.
once I took like a consciousness about that, I sort of played into it more, and the other songs that followed suit sort of became a bit more conscious about time,
Mm-hmm.
and just to make it a bit more obvious
Mm-hmm.
and consistent, because I think with this album shaping up to have a fair amount of songs, I'd say more than 10 straight.
Oh wow.
We don't know how many will actually make the cut, but
Okay.
with this album, um, yeah, you run the risk of losing the attention of the modern listener, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to try and avoid that, I really want the story to sort of flow. And time seemed like a very relatable subject to, I guess, everyone, regardless of their
Yeah.
own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I want it to both be sonically and thematically like just like one experience.
Yeah, that's cool though. Like how you're able to kind of put all of that together. It obviously is like it you create music with intention, which I think is always the best kind of music too, because a lot of people will be able to relate, especially to time. I feel like time is a very it's very abstract, but also very like it's something that people can really definitely relate to. So we're excited to see obviously everything that you've been working on like with the 10 songs. Hopefully, you know, we get to hear them very, very soon. We're very excited. But you did recently put out a single not too long ago called Metro 435. So could you tell us more about this song, like what it's about and what was it like creating it? I love the vibe of the song. It felt very like retro to me, but also modern at the same time. So
Oh, that's great.
what was this all about?
Okay, so I think Metro was probably the first
Mm-hmm.
song I wrote
Mm-hmm.
when I sort of had that moment to sit down and reflect on my time in Australia. And so Metro 435 in particular sort of um, centered itself around the lifestyle I was keeping at the time, because
Mm-hmm.
yes, I was in that city for the sake of music, but realistically speaking, I sort of had to keep some sort of part-time work to get by, to make rent, to
Mm-hmm.
pay all the bills. So unfortunately for myself, I was not able to find part-time work that sort of, was able to exist at a very different point in time in my day or week from the music. It ate itself into the music a
Oh.
lot. So like, I think most people would agree that when it comes to the live stuff or just like trying to get involved with the music community, you'd want to leave the evening and the nights of the weekends for that, because that's where I think things are most bustling in that world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Pre-pandemic. So for everyone
Yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah.
forgotten that's how it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I kept the job that I was a cook, and that basically
Wow.
meant that because I also lived really far out from the city, I had to
Mhm.
wake up on the weekends at 4:35 in the morning. So that was
That's
pretty
crazy.
hard to balance. Yeah, and
Yeah.
add that to the fact that I was living in a place without heating, and there were like 5-degree mornings, and
Oh my God.
so
Mhm.
that essentially, like, initially I was very, like, I wouldn't say resilient but stubborn, where I was like, yeah, this is fine, I can juggle both of this. But and the
Mhm.
house I stayed in was like a 15-minute walk to the train station. So it
Mhm.
got to a point where that 15-minute walk every weekend morning felt like a
Mhm.
reflection on whether what I was doing was making sense. And
Mhm.
I got really contemplative, because I tell myself, like, look, I've really sacrificed a lot of the weekend nights to be awake at this godforsaken hour
It
to
really
make
is a
myself,
godforsaken hour. Oh my God, I
yeah.
agree.
Add that to the fact that you leave home and the
Yeah.
temperature doesn't change because it's that cold inside as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the walks to the metro, which was the name
Mhm.
of the trains, right, in Melbourne,
Mhm.
and it's ironic as well, because I look forward to the train, because that's the first form of heating for the day, because the trains have heaters.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the 4:35 walks to the metro, I think it's basically the amalgamation of those two words. um,
Mhm.
and that sort of introspection within that 15-minute gap every weekend morning about
Mhm.
what I was truly there for. And that's essentially the conversation, because it's all in my mind, right, during the time.
Yeah.
But to sort of express that, I felt that lyrically through the song itself, my thoughts, I think, that whole, like, mishmash of everything I was thinking just felt very appropriate for what I wrote for the song.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's basically what Metro 435 is about. And in that aspect of uh, the story, that's where it leads itself back into time.
That is wild. Like this whole story that you just like shared about waking up at 4:35, literally a godforsaken hour. That was literally my first thought. Like 4:35, like no one is human at 4:35. No wonder like that was I mean I mean I totally get what you mean about, resilience but also being stubborn at the same time. I can totally imagine like that point in your life, and I love that you're able to like kind of chronicle this whole part of your life through a song. It's kind of like a time capsule. Like now that
Yeah,
you listen to
yeah,
it, you have like different aspects of your life that you're able to chronicle through song and through music, which once again, not everyone has. So amazing that you have, and such a I can imagine like there are a lot of difficulties also during that time in your life. Obviously, thinking about so many things that you want to do, and all of that. But how you were able to express it through music, I wouldn't even have thought that those were the things that you were thinking at that time. It just kind of is the song is something that you just kind of want to vibe to in your room, that kind of thing. And then it has all this whole backstory. So I don't know if you saw my face. I was really like, oh my god, like I had no idea like this is what it's about. But that gives it a whole different like dynamic and a whole different like side to the song, which makes me even love it even more now, which makes me even more excited too for the EP or the album that you're working on, because I can imagine these are different times in your life too that you express through music. So what can people expect coming from the album that you're working on? You said you have 10 songs on it. How has it been working on it too?
it's okay. So it's funny because on one hand, it's very introspective, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm, mhm.
but on the other hand, it's also the first album where I'm actually being the most collaborative I've ever been. So
Oh.
It's got an
Mhm.
album. It's an album full of features, I'd say. I've not done any explicit feature in the past,
Mhm.
aside from, yeah. But anyway, it's interesting because when you work with not just like singers but full bands, right? Because
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
found that a fun challenge to work with.
Yeah.
You need to sort of get everyone involved to live vicariously through me and
Yeah.
experience what I was basically experiencing, but also use their perspective to sort of, I wouldn't say distill, but um, express the story, or transcribe the story into a one that doesn't just make sense for me, but for the eventual listener, because
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be too, full of myself here. These
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
my stories, but I believe at its core, these are struggles that a lot of people share.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, getting that sort of external opinion, plus learning to be a lot more vulnerable with myself with some of
Mhm.
these issues, and, just bouncing these ideas off these collaborators and finding that middle ground to both be
Yeah.
very introspective, but to a certain degree, give the story some relatability to everyone.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
like a definite, like a balance with
yeah,
everything that you wanted to express. And yeah, I totally agree. Like even with Metro 435, I feel like your story, although it's not exactly the same as, the story of others, is something that a lot of people can relate to, waking up, having to wake up early for a commute, and like, getting somewhere for work, and also thinking about all of these things in life. I mean, we've all kind of been there. We've all also experience that in our own way, and that makes me so excited to see how you're able to balance like your experience and kind of sharing that with others who are trying to express your experience through the music. Is going to be really exciting, and we can't wait, obviously, for the album. So we're so excited for it. We'll just have to savor your music for now, that's online, hopefully one day live. But we're so excited for you, and we can't wait, obviously. So you have the album coming up, but is there anything else that we can look forward to when it comes to your music?
So the follow-up single to Metro
Hmm.
is actually
Nice.
coming out on the 8th of October.
Oh.
That's called Excuse Me, What's the Time? It's a lot more in your face about the
Yeah.
theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the song features, I think this is where I sort of, show the collaborative spirit behind the album, because this song features a Japanese band
Oh
um,
wow.
called Fontana Fall, and they're usually
Ooh.
they lean towards a more jazzier type sound. But
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because with this track, I seeked out, a band that would give me a very contrasting perspective to writing, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was perfect here. And we sort of wrote this track together to express a different concept of a
Mm-hmm.
different aspect of time. And what we are doing here is, we discuss about how circumstance for all of us can impact the friendships and relationships we have with
Oh.
people. So it's not really about, two people like falling apart in an emotional sense, but more on a circumstantial sense, where, like, for example, for
Mm-hmm.
me, when I spent my time in Australia as well, I was both not able to keep, in physical touch with some of the close people in my life, and for a very long time
Mm-hmm.
being away, that obviously had an impact on the friendship. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not something that I could have really like helped, because
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do virtually. And
Mm-hmm.
I think now the world has learned to do that better since the pandemic.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's about that conversation, and, trying to be accepting that sometimes you can't necessarily keep yourself in this space of denial that things are not how they actually are. And, I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to sound pessimistic here. It's really not that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the spirit of the song. In fact, it's a
Mm-hmm.
really boppy one. And I
Oh.
think that's usually the trend, where like I
Yeah.
balance this sort of like heavy type lyrical content with like very dancey stuff. I find that irony always so fun to work with. uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, that single, it's coming out on the 8th of October,
Mhm.
and that's that's coming out really soon. So I encourage
Mhm.
anyone or everyone to pre-save it. The
Mhm.
links on my social media,
Mhm.
and and from there you've got a whole lineup of follow-up singles up till the album's release in March.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting for the next few months, and I
Mhm.
encourage, you know, anyone really to sort of keep in touch with what I'm putting out. And
Mhm.
if I'm not explicit enough about what the content is about, I'm more than happy to
Mhm.
always share it, through any platform or whatnot.
Well, that's so exciting. I love that, like we said, you have these like heavy topics and you really try to deliver them through dancey, vibey kind of music. It's kind of like, how we want to deal with the world sometimes. It's like things are so heavy, we just want to dance. So, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. And we're so excited, like, to hear obviously the album, but the upcoming singles as well. And the album coming in March. Super exciting. So we can't wait for that. That's actually really near if we think about it. I mean, time is
Yeah.
relative, I guess, but it's pretty near. So we have that to look forward to. But the next single is called Excuse Me. What's the time? Is that right?
Excuse me, what's the time? Correct.
Oh, there you go. Excuse me, what's the time? Love it. Very straight up. Something I feel like a lot of people can relate to too. So I'm excited to, hear that single and of course the album coming in March. So to everyone tuning in, if you haven't yet, make sure to listen to Houg's music. It's available on multiple digital streaming platforms. Watch out for the next single, Excuse Me, What's the Time? You can pre-save it, and also the album coming in March. So until then, there will be more releases coming from
Yes.
Houg. So you guys have to keep an eye out for that. But before I let you go, Houg, do you have a message to all of your Filipino fans, but also to everyone who's been listening to your music? And where can everyone follow you on your social medias, just so they can keep updated with everything that you have going on?
All right. First of all, I'd really like to just thank anyone and everyone who's been listening to, the chapters in this ongoing story that is Hauk.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Your support is it's amazing. And for those of you who are keen to find out more, you can find me on basically any social media really, at Haug
Mhm.
or Haug official, because
Mhm.
sometimes Haug is taken. So that's when I sort of, resolved to using, Haug official. So Haug official on, TikTok, Instagram, and yeah, elsewhere it's always just Haug, Houg.
There you go, guys. So make sure to follow Haug everywhere so you guys can keep updated on everything that's going on, especially his music. And of course, don't forget to stream his music. It's available on multiple digital streaming platforms. But thank you so much, Haug, for joining us here
Thanks so much,
on
Sam.
Mix today. Thank you. It was a great chat. I'm excited for all the music that you have going on, and we can't wait to hear it very, very soon. But for now, we do have to say goodbye to everyone who's tuning in. But thank you to everyone who tuned into this MYXclusive. This has been Samu 2Ms and How. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.